right? I don't think that the people at Microsoft, or, I mean, you look at what has happened with MySpace, the new social networking thing. In fact, you look at all of the new media companies that are out there that I've seen grow up in the last few years. YouTube, Friendster, Facebook, MySpace, none of them was created by somebody more than 30 years old. You know, how do you understand that new generation? I think of a smart company like Coca-Cola. Coke was late over the last decade. They were late to every single new beverage trend. Every single one. From sports drinks to bottled waters to new age beverages like Red Bull. Late and late and late. Changing faster than cultural change today is technological change. Every 3 years, every 2 years, we get a new generation of technology, and changing fastest of all is knowledge itself. So about today, as we sit here, about 12%, 1/8 of what we know as human beings, we learned in the last 5 years. That's how fast knowledge is accumulating. Now, you know, one of the challenges here is as the change curve accelerates, this is a real challenge for incumbents. Because, you know, it used to be when change was better behaved, if you saw something that was changing in the environment, let's call that time frame about a year. Let's say you missed some important change in technology or something by a year. You could catch up. You had the resources, the advantages of incumbency, and you might have gotten behind, but you could catch up. You remember at the beginning of the PC revolution, IBM was behind. Apple produced the world's first kind of personal computer. IBM was late by a couple of years, but a huge brand, big resources, they muscled their way in, and pretty soon they had set the standard and they were the leaders. But you want to think of what happens when change is accelerating and you miss something in the environment by that same small window. Motorola was about 18 months behind Nokia in the move from analog to digital wireless. In that 18 months, they lost their leadership and they've never regained it. And I don't think they ever will, not unless they get in front of the next technological discontinuity. So, you know, companies are going to have to learn to change faster than ever before. And that means that as managers, we're going to have to change our allocation of our time. You know, in a world where life was largely about simply getting incrementally better, then you could spend most of your time executing. And in fact, I would tell you, there are people today who will tell you that discipline and focus and execution, that these are the fundamental advantages for the next century. They are wrong. They are dead wrong. Yes, those are important. You got to have great execution. You got to have focus. You got to have discipline. But those are simply going to be the entry stakes, the table stakes for competitive success. That means we're going to have to spend proportionally more time creating and learning. Think about this. As the pace of knowledge creation accelerates, we are all becoming ignorant faster. You ever think about that? You're all becoming stupider quicker, right? I'm sorry to tell you that, but it's the truth, right? So am I. And so it's a challenge. Now, I don't know where this extra time is going to come from, because most of us are pretty busy right now. But what I do know is that as change accelerates, so must the pace of strategic renewal in organizations. We used to occasionally talk about a company that had become a dinosaur. Now what you see increasingly around the world is you see entire industries that have gotten caught behind the change curve. The traditional pharmaceutical companies have a broken business model. R&D yields are coming down. Most new drugs now have only minor therapeutic advantages over the old drugs. Societies around the world cannot afford these medicines. The whole technological base is shifting from chemistry to genomics, right? And companies like Pfizer and Merck and GlaxoSmithKline and so on are struggling to catch up to companies like Genzyme and Amgen and Genentech and so on, who are creating the future there. The same thing, is true if I look at traditional television, look at traditional newspapers, now fighting with online news. I virtually get all of my news online today. I can see all the columnists from around the world go to Google News, and they track about 1,700 news sources around the world. And so, we used to think about innovating in our products and our services. Increasingly, we're going to have to innovate in our business models. And most companies have very little experience with that. Right? Most companies, in fact, let me ask you the question. What does it usually take? What usually has to happen before a company will have a really deep and honest conversation about the need to change its core strategy?